Greetings, all you flower children out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. This is Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
What up?
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 3, Episode 12, Past Tense, Part 2, alternate title, For Whom the Bell Riots.
Oh, okay.
Get it?
It took me a second, but I got there.
I was like, For Whom the Gabriel Bell Tolls?
No, yeah, you did it better.
Yeah, okay. Our discussion will contain spoilers for the series up through this episode. However, we will try to keep spoilers for later in the series to an appropriate minimum. We won't reveal anything too big, like when they go back in time to the Civil War and Quark winds up taking the place of Abraham Lincoln. Kind of a weird episode, but you know.
Well, you always think of Abraham Lincoln as being so tall, but
right. I like the scene. I like the scene at the end where they're looking at the Wikipedia article of Abraham Lincoln, and it's a picture of Quark.
The stovepipe hat can add a lot. You don't understand how much.
Like, oh, you must be him. You're wearing his hat. This episode originally aired January 9th, 1995, according to IMDb and Paramount Plus, or January, I think, 15th, according to Memory Alpha. So, and then I think it was January 7th, according to Wikipedia. So who knows when it aired? Everybody has just decided, I guess, to pick a different date.
Yeah, what are we going to do? We just do the best we can do.
I'm going to pick Paramount Plus because we
can be consistent at least.
Yeah. It seems like they would be more official anyway. The episode was written by Ira Stephen Bear and Renee Echevarria, story by Ira Stephen Bear and Robert Hewitt Wolf, and directed by, in his third part 2 in a row, Jonathan Frakes.
And his last DS9 episode, I think,
wow,
that he directs. But it's funny because it specifically pulls out it. Apparently, the way they pick who gets to direct what episode of this series is by random number draw or something. Because it says that he was given this assignment by random selection, the typical process for directors being assigned to direct episodes of the series. Uh-huh. But also, his directing of this series, or of this episode rather, is apparently what landed him the job of directing Star Trek First Contact.
Oh. Interesting. I think there's some Star Trek First Contact parallels in here too. So
well, you're not wrong, yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, picking up from last week, in the Sanctuary District Processing Center, Dr. Bashir, hipster asshole, whose name is apparently BC. I don't know if they ever told us that last episode.
Yep, BC.
And Cisco, incognito's Gabriel Bell, secure the room and the hostages.
His name is Biddle Coleridge.
Yeah, okay, yeah. It's like, yeah, Biddle. Bashir and Cisco have to be on constant alert to protect the hostages from BC's itchy trigger finger. Dick Miller jumps out with a gun, but is quickly subdued by Cisco. So, good try there, Dick Miller.
I really don't understand his character through this whole episode, honestly. Where it's it seems like he really wants to get himself or the other hostages killed.
Right, yeah, I think he has a death wish. I think he's trying to cash in on some insurance for his family or something. I don't know. As they close the blinds to guard against snipers and barricade the windows with benches that put big sniper-friendly gaps in the blinds.
Yeah, I did notice also the big gaps, but at the same time, the windows, I can't see out those windows. I don't know that anyone can see in those windows, sniper or no.
You can kind of see the shadows of the rioters outside, so...
So yeah, I guess even shadows could get you sniped.
Right. Although, I mean, you would think they wouldn't risk shooting through the foggy glass. It's like, is that a person? I'll just shoot him. Oh no, it was a hostage.
Well, apparently they don't give a crap about the hostages. The governor's like, I heard maybe the hostages are dead. It's like, yeah, but those are clearly just rumors. Like, how would anyone know that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, plus they're on the internet. Like, can't you just ask them to show the hostages? But anyway, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sisko and Bashir discuss their next moves. Bashir points out that Bell is supposed to die in the riots. And Sisko points out that he's not Bell. Which I don't know if I agree with either of their logic in the situation.
Well, I mean, Bashir's logic sort of makes sense because, I mean, Bell does die in the riots. For all he knows, like, all of the hostage takers might end up killed. Like, Sisko didn't explain that to him. So, but, yeah, Sisko's logic doesn't make sense to me. Where he's like, well, I'm not Bell. Okay, that's true, I guess.
Yeah.
But, like, you are taking the part of Bell, right? So...
Right. Well, I think, like, I guess what Bashir is trying to get at is to preserve history, Sisko would have to die in Bell's place or whatever.
Oh, I actually hadn't thought of it that way. I thought he was just like, we need to try to make sure you don't die. But yeah, maybe he was saying we need to try to make sure you do die.
But I think what Sisko is trying to say is, well, yeah, but I'm not Bell. I know the future, so we can improvise our way out of it or something. I don't know. It's not super clear. As they watch news coverage of the riots on Channel 90 of the internet.
Yep. It's all streaming in 2024, but you still have channel numbers.
Right. Super Mega Hitler's dad, whose name is apparently Webb, comes in to see what's up. Sisko tells him to go out and get more gimmies to lower the ratio of ghosts to gimmies guarding the hostages.
I mean, it's not a bad idea.
I guess all gimmies wear that, or all ghosts wear that
same hat, yeah.
Outfit.
It's just like, you see one from the back and I'm like, is that BC? Or, I don't know.
Yep, they all wear that just like crazy hipster outfit. Meanwhile, Jadzia watches the same news on Chris Brenner's penthouse.
After hooking up with him, probably.
Yeah, you got to make the best of a bad situation. She decides against Brenner's advice to go to the Sanctuary District herself to help her friends. Meanwhile, but also in the future, Chief O'Brien has narrowed down Sisko and Co.'s location to 10 periods in history.
Somehow.
Yeah. Apparently nobody has thought to just go down to Earth real fast and swipe a history book.
Well, I don't know what's going on Earth, to be honest. Like, they're really unclear on what the situation is.
Yeah. They don't really say. You'd think they'd beam down real fast, be like, what's going on here? But instead they try a time seemingly at random, which you think, okay, so you pick the time that's like in the middle, and then you beam down, and you're like, okay, has history changed yet?
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
and that tells you which way to go.
Yes, let's like split the difference again. No, let's split the difference in the opposite direction. You're going to zero in on it in just like 2 or 3 beams.
Nope, they don't think of that. Also,
right.
Once again, it's just so contrived that we have 10 for some reason, but we only have enough magical chronoton juice for like 5 or whatever. So it's like they're trying to add that extra tension to it, which is just like, it's kind of pointless. We know that they're going to find them, or something will happen to fix things. So, like, why bother with the super fakey extra tension?
Although you'd think they'd come up with some sort of like, at least have O'Brien say, "Oh, I know, I can trace the chronotons and charges and singularities using the floop-de-doo algorithm to find them at the very end," or something. But no, he blindly picks one off a list, and it turns out to be right.
He super clearly just randomly, and then he tells Kira, "That's my best guess," and she's like, right. "Okay, well, I'll trust you." And I was like, "But that's not even his best guess. Yeah. That's his randomly determined guess."
Like, did you just see what I saw? Like, maybe put a little bit more thought into this. Your chances are 33%. Oh well. So yeah, they beam down to what seems to be Prohibition era San Francisco.
Yep. No
luck. But they run into some extras who laugh at them but do not have any lines.
So the 2 years that we see in the officials are outlined in the official Star Trek calendar or chronology. One of them is 1930, which must be that one.
Sure.
And the other one is 1967.
Okay. The golden age of the San Francisco hippie.
Yeah. In the 1930 scene, there is an advertisement for a boxing match. And it is specifically put in there because in the original series episode City on the Edge of Forever, there is a poster for a boxing match between the same guys for a bout at Madison Square Garden. And then the ad in this episode is for a bout at Bayland Garden and notes their first rematch since Madison Square Garden.
Oh.
And so apparently the people working on the show were like, just realized like, hey, wait, they'll be on Earth at like the same time as Kirk and Spock, essentially. We should acknowledge this in some way.
Huh. Yeah. That's a nice little tie-in.
And then apparently like Jonathan Frakes, when he's directing it, like really featured the poster a lot in some shots, but no one had told him about like that significance or anything. So like, yeah, I don't think he really knew like what was up with that poster, but he sure did like focus on it a bunch.
I did notice that poster, but I didn't think there was any significance to it. I just thought it was, like they had to dress up this backlot building to look like the 1930s, and they just put this old boxing poster up.
Yeah.
So that's neat. Back in the riot, BC, Cisco Bell, and Webb strategize. BC proposes trading the hostages for a free ride to Tasmania, birthplace of Errol Flynn.
Yeah, obviously.
It's like, what's this all about if we don't get to go see the birthplace of Errol Flynn?
I'm sure that there's no extradition between Australia and the U.S. in 2024, sadly.
Probably. Cisco counters that they should demand all the sanctuary districts be closed. Slightly more ambitious.
Yeah, I mean, neither of those plans was ever gonna work, but that is a real, just big shot that he's taking.
Yeah. Hey, go big or go home. Webb goes to broadcast the demands over the internet, but suddenly their connection is cut. Dick Miller starts taunting them for being a bunch of losers. Then a detective calls into their computer and starts negotiating. Webb and Cisco go outside to give their demands, which she promises to pass on to the governor.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I mean, I can't make any guarantees there, but I'll tell them what you want.
It's like their demands to close all sanctuary districts nationwide and reinstate the Federal Jobs Act or whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure that the governor of California will get right on that Federal Jobs Act.
It's like, wouldn't that be a job for the U.S. Congress? But then Bashir helps a woman with hypoglycemia, and the woman tells him a sad story of a lady who came to the district after abandoning her child. It doesn't have much effect on the plot, just a little...
Yeah.
Just a little something for that lady's acting reel, I think.
It shows that she cares about these people.
True, I guess. Which, I feel like you used to see way more people with hypoglycemia. Is that just me?
I don't know. It was, I think, especially in the 90s, like a thing that you could just pull out to add extra, like an extra problem to a hostage taking scene. I feel like in hostage scenes, it comes up like, oh no, this person needs food or they need insulin. Like either way that you want to take it, that it's always like, oh, an extra complicating factor to our hostage taking.
I just remember in school, there used to be this girl in my class who had hypoglycemia. I forget where it was, but it was like she had to have snack time, like literally constantly.
Huh.
But I don't think I've met any people with hypoglycemia lately. I don't know.
Maybe people just don't talk about it as much. You don't have to, like, if you're going to work as an adult, you don't have to arrange with somebody to be allowed to have snack time like you do with a student and a teacher.
True. I don't know. That just made me wonder. The next morning, Dick Miller tries to make a run for it, but BC catches him. Cisco points a shotgun at BC, and then Webb stands between BC and Dick Miller. So, no, Dick Miller's death wish once again does not pay off.
I like how he just, when no one's paying attention, he gets up and casually strolls away.
He's like, doot, 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 doot. That BC was fast, though.
Yep. So, Ira Stephen Bear has something to say on the presentation of BC in the episode.
Okay.
It's like, it is the key to the overriding theme of this two-parter is BC.
Oh, wow.
Whereas BC cold-bloodedly kills Gabriel Bell in part 1.
I remember that.
It's never mentioned in this episode that he's a murderer. The reason for this, according to Bear, is that BC would never have killed Bell if society hadn't forced him into that position. BC was not inherently a killer, and Bear was determined that the episode not become about Sisko and Bashir trapped with a cold-blooded murderer. In the writing of the episode, Bear wanted to use the character of BC to illustrate the notion that if you treat people like animals, they become animals. If BC had not been homeless, what would he have been? We created this backstory, stuff that wouldn't appear on the screen, and decided he probably would have been a garage mechanic or something. Even though he's obviously a threatening, scary character, and he's on the edge crazy through both shows, we don't define him as a murderer.
Okay. That, I didn't write it down, but that was a thought I had, was that BC just killed Gabriel Bell in the last episode. In this episode, he just seems like a nice, or relatively nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, Sisko's like, it seems like you're not going to be happy until you kill one of these hostages. And he's like, yeah, that had occurred to me. So it's not like he's nice, but like Sisko's not calling him out on the fact that he's a murderer. Like, it shouldn't surprise you he wants to kill somebody. He just killed somebody, like, earlier today.
Right. In reality, he's just a guy who wants to follow in the footsteps of his idol, Errol Flynn.
Who, Errol Flynn had to stab people for their food cards sometimes.
Yeah. This caused me to read the Wikipedia article for Errol Flynn, and that guy got into some stuff. The dude loved to party, that's for sure, though. Yeah, so checking in with O'Brien and Kira, they beam down to what seems to be hippie-era San Francisco and get given some flowers. So you're saying this is 1967. So
yep.
Like loud, generic electric guitar music is playing. And then some hippies give them some flowers and they beam out. And I love the one guy's line, which is, what was it like? Whoa.
So one of the quotes listed in the memorable quotes section for this episode is attributed to hippie guy, and it's wow.
Yeah, I just love the way he says it. It's like, wow. So Bashir treats hypoglycemic lady, then has a chat with the hostage guards about how someday there won't be a need for places like the sanctuary districts. I understand that this is kind of some of the meat of the episode, but it's just like, yeah, he talks to these guys and they're like, hey, here's my family. And he's like, I know that someday the world will be a better place after World War III. Webb and Sisko Bell talk to the detective who says the governor is going to form a committee to look into their issues. So, problem solved. Yep. But he's not going to let the situation go on forever.
The governor's committee will look at reinstating the federal act that they have nothing to do with.
The committee will be like, are we able to do that? No. Okay.
Committee done.
Dax emerges from a manhole cover in the sanctuary district, then gets followed by Clint Howard.
Yeah, so interestingly,
who is a Star Trek, classic Star Trek alum.
Yeah,
I do know.
Corbomite maneuver, but they wrote this character, the character of Grady, specifically for Iggy Pop, but he was unavailable at the time.
Wow.
So they went and got Clint Howard, I guess.
That's interesting. Bashir and Sisko try to figure out how to get onto the net so people can tell their stories. BC and his goons drag Dax in, who explains how she was able to hack her way in through the sewers, but someone took her comm badge. Sisko tells Bashir and Dax to go get the comm badge back while he tries to figure out how to get onto the net, and then Dax points out she might be able to help with that.
Yep, she's hooking up with the guy who can help you out. It's fine. I missed this until just now, so this is taking a step back.
Okay.
So the song that plays in the 1960s, in the original broadcast, it was Hey Joe, played by the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Sure.
But it has been replaced in streaming services with, I guess, generic music or something. It doesn't actually say what it's been replaced with. Yeah,
I mean, it just sounded like someone was just playing some stuff on an electric guitar. Hey Joe would have been way cooler. Also, just not clear where the music is coming from. Like, is it coming from in that van? Or
I assumed it was, yeah.
It's like,
because it stops and then they get out.
Yeah, because it's like they beam down and like the whole planet is playing this music or something.
It is very loud, yeah. Because they don't like, let's step away from this van to get a better, so we can hear each other talk. They just stand there yelling inaudibly at each other.
Yeah. So yeah, in that scene also we have Bashir pointing out that they probably should get Dax out of there because eventually someone will find out she's an alien. Or, she might get hit by a car, and then they'll be like, wait, this is an alien or something. She might get into that situation that Riker got into in that first Contact episode. We don't want that. But Bashir says he's going to stay. Anyway, Dax and Bashir go track down Clint Howard, who tries to evade them with his invisibility powers, but they're not working.
It's a really great scene, actually. I love that.
Yeah. It's like, you can see me? It's like, a little.
It's like, I'm one of those aliens. I'm an alien. And he's like, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
But you're one of the good ones. She's like, yep, totally one of the good ones.
I mean, Dax's gift for rolling with it is just spot on.
Yep, she's a very yes and type of performer.
Dax gets her badge back and goes to convince Chris Brenner to lift the internet block. Which he's like, I can't do that. I'll lose my license. But it'll be good ratings. So it's like, all right. So the residents get on the internet and tell their stories. However, Detective What's-Her-Face is on a 90s-era cell phone and gets orders to move in on the district.
Yep. Also, I noticed in this one that, like, she and the other cop sitting next to her are both wearing, like, weird ascot things. And I was just like, I guess that's, like, the style at the time? Mm-hmm. Like wearing an onion on your belt?
Chris Brenner is wearing one too, and he, like, his coat jacket, like, buttons up between his nipples or something. It's a very weird look. But that, that's that 2024 fashion we have to look forward to in 1 year.
I was about to say, we could try it. I mean, we could bring it. We could make it happen using our influence in the fashion world.
Yep. Just I'm sure that will work. So yeah, back to the adventures of O'Brien and Kira. They return from the year 2048 and decide that the history split must have happened before then. And then O'Brien's like, I don't remember 21st century history being that bad. I mean, the whole world got destroyed by nukes.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what he saw. Like, are like the Eloi and the Morlocks fighting it out? I don't know.
It's got to be a really bad situation, which I have a theory on, which I'll get to in a little bit. Anyway,
okay.
They have enough particles for one more try, so O'Brien just picks a date at random, which of course turns out to be correct, and they are able to get in touch with Dax and meet up.
Do they actually establish how they're getting back, other than, like, magical transporterness can reach into the other time?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if they said it out right, but the transporter was just on a timer.
Well, yeah, but it's like the transporter is in the future.
Right.
So I don't...
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess the transporter can lock onto their comm badges through time and beam them out.
I mean, really, the more as this episode progressed, I just realized the more that I think about the time travel, the less sense it makes, because it's like the initial team goes back in time, but time doesn't change instantly.
Right.
Time changes like a while later when, like, in Showtime, after Gabriel Bell gets killed in Showtime, suddenly the timeline changes.
Right.
But O'Brien and Kira going back in time has no effect on what Sisko or Bashir do through the end of the thing. So that shouldn't have changed anything. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, that's
the way they chose to write this.
That's one of my major points about this episode, is that O'Brien and Kira do not change a single thing, but somehow it still fixes history.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that Dax would have hung around at that guy's office for a while longer if O'Brien and Kira hadn't messaged her or whatever, but that's literally the only change. Unless it was really like Sisko and Bashir and Dax living out the rest of their lives in this time period that somehow destroyed the future.
Yeah, I think that must be it. Or just like maybe Dax got discovered as an alien and that sent the world into chaos or something. I don't know. Or maybe like, Bashir just kept saving people's lives and making new mega super Hitlers.
So many Hitlers.
Yep. So yeah, back in the Sanctuary District, they're sitting around discussing baseball. Which, okay, let's talk about this. First of all, I didn't realize that Buck Bokai was from so long ago. For some reason, I thought he was from like the 22nd or 23rd century or something.
I know baseball apparently goes out of style, I thought, like earlier than you would have thought, but I don't recall exactly. But yeah, he's on the London Kings. 2015 team was his rookie year.
Let's see, I looked it up. I think the last World Series is 2042, which
okay.
if baseball goes out of style in the next 19 years, I will be amazed. But whatever.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, the final World Series 2042 during World War III. Only 300 spectators. The series was won by the London Kings, the winning home run struck by Buck Bokai. So his rookie year was 2024. He played for a while. Like, you don't see that long a run in baseball often.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you do with baseball players. But okay, so it said that the last World Series was during World War III.
That's what this says, yeah.
Okay, that would kind of make sense then, because people are like, okay, maybe we should focus on this nuclear war that's happening.
Right, yeah.
Rather than watch the World Series.
So, let's see. This episode aired in 1995. Cisco says the 2015 London Kings were the best team in history. While Vin claims it was the 1999 New York Yankees. In reality, the Yankees did indeed win the World Series in 1999.
Huh.
So that was an interesting prediction that they made in 95.
I gotta say, it's not a huge prediction to predict that the Yankees are going to win the World Series.
It's the Yankees team of the previous year, 1998, won 16 more games and has often been called one of the greatest teams ever.
Huh.
So the accuracy of the prediction is surprising, given that while the Yankees were clearly a team on the rise in early 1995, there was little to suggest that they would go on to dominate the latter half of the 90s the way they did.
Huh.
In reality, the 2015 World Series was won by the Kansas City Royals, a team with a similar mascot, logo, and primary color to the fictional London Kings. Interesting.
Man. Have time travelers written this show?
Yeah, right. Also, there's a note here that after Cisco tackles Vin, BC's like, "Man, I'd hate to be a catcher and see you barreling towards home plate." And so it's like, at the time this episode aired, plate collisions were still a fairly common occurrence and were among the most violent plays in baseball. In real life, plate blocking rules in baseball were changed for safety reasons in 2014, and home plate collisions are banned in nearly every circumstance.
Okay, so here's what happened. This takes place in the universe where they didn't make that rule.
Yep.
And the result was the Sanctuary District.
We solved it.
Yeah. That's the point of divergence right there. So yeah, they're talking about baseball when it becomes apparent the raid is about to start. Then BC gives Mega Super Hitler his hat, which inspires Mega Super Hitler even more to take over the Earth or whatever.
Oh, hold on. This is interesting. Cisco discusses the London Kings and Buck Bokai with Vin, played by Dick Miller. Uh-huh. Both the player and the team were first mentioned during Miller's first Star Trek appearance, The Big Goodbye.
Huh. Oh yeah, well, we talked about that during the If Wishes Were Horses episode, right?
Yeah, but it's just interesting that Dick Miller is in both of these.
Yeah. Whoa. So I'll only be in the episode if you talk about a hypothetical baseball team from the 21st century.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, the cops burst in and start shooting everybody. Webb and BC go down pretty much immediately, as does Cisco when trying to protect Dick Miller, but his wound doesn't seem that bad. He gets shot, but he's just kind of like, ow. So Dick Miller offers to let Cisco and Bashir go put their ID cards on some dead bodies, which begs the question, then how are you going to cover up those guys?
I mean, just go find the actual Gabriel Bell and stick the Gabriel Bell ID on him. It's fine.
And then just don't mention Dr. Bashir or something.
I mean, nobody's going to care about one guy more or less, especially since nobody ever really saw Bashir. He wasn't one of the negotiators like Gabriel Bell was. So also, it's some really poor police work that this SWAT team shows up to the place where the hostages are being held, shoots the guys, and then they're like, okay, we got to go. Any remaining potential hostage takers here, you guys handle it.
Yeah. He's like, okay, you guys take those shotguns. We're going to go shoot some rioters out here. Bye. So yeah, we cut back to on the Defiant, just all of a sudden. We don't see how they got out or anything. Gira explains in a log that the timeline has been restored somehow. The logic of this is never explained. Bashir pays recovering Sisko a visit and shows him a Wikipedia article of Gabriel Bell, which shows a picture of Sisko. And Bashir wonders how things could have gotten so bad, and Sisko doesn't have an answer, making you wonder what the whole point was. The end.
The whole point was that it needs to be fixed. So...
This imaginary problem needs to be fixed. And we can't let it happen again, even though it never really happened.
So, it's interesting in here because this one note says, the audience reaction to this episode was, at least in Colomini's opinion, extremely positive. Uh-huh. So, his opinion was that the audiences really liked it.
Yeah.
But it says, however, when the episode aired, it received some criticism for appearing too preachy, liberal, and soapbox-like.
There's definitely some finger wagging going on, but...
Yeah, that was my main complaint about the previous episode. So, yeah I mean... it says, this is something which disappointed Ira Stephen Bear, who felt the show had important things to say, and that it treated a serious situation in a realistic manner. He says, we're not going to solve anything with 2 hours of TV. The homeless are still there. The problem hasn't gone away. But maybe just one person saw this and started to see the problem in a different way. I just thought it was important to show the other side. But then... He comments, several months after the two-parter aired, people are still writing that we only presented one side in past tense.
What?
And that we should have presented both sides, not just the liberal point of view. And I'm still trying to think what that means. In other words, we should have showed the positive aspects of putting the homeless in concentration camps. I do admit we probably failed in that. We really did not show the many, many wonderful aspects of life without money and living in overcrowded camps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good, like, I don't feel like it's an especially liberal position to say that homelessness is bad. But at the same time, it's like, how did we get to that point? The episode, like, never addresses that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, suddenly there's these camps where all the homeless people and just random other people are forced to live. And then we've got to do something about it.
I guess maybe as Los Angeles people, they felt that when they were writing this and the mayor is suggesting that we actually do this, they're like, it should be self-explanatory to everyone how we got here, since we are here.
Right. I think I have a few ideas about how this episode could be vastly improved with just a little tweaking in terms of telling a story with a moral. But one of them is like, throughout history, it's just amazing how you can start at one place that's relatively good and just a few years later be in a crazy, desperate situation and be like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think the point is, or the point could be, it's like you think something like this never could happen, but you don't realize like how close this stuff is sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this episode just seems to be saying, yeah, this is definitely where we're heading if we don't change something or whatever. When I think it's like, nobody means for this stuff to happen, but through carelessness or good intentions even, it just winds up happening. And I'm reminded of like, the show The Wire, which is, you could call it a very preachy show, but the thing about that show is it just shows how things are, and it doesn't like necessarily blame them on anybody or like be like tisk tisk tisk. It's just like, look, this is the situation we got ourselves into. Like, these are the real problems. And, we need to... These problems are difficult to address, but we can't pretend that they don't exist. Like, I'm thinking there's, in season 3, like, there's this character named Major Colvin who's just always giving these great speeches about, like, just, this is the situation we're in, and it's no good. And he doesn't say it in this way, like, oh my gosh, if only we'd done this or done that, or if only we did this or that. Like, and like in that season, he tries to solve the drug problem himself by setting up legalized drug zones, which kind of works in some ways, but then like these drug zones turn into these like horrible shanty towns where like drug addicts are going and dying and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that how that would happen.
At one point, he's in this community meeting and like someone's like, well, what's the answer to the problem? And he's like, I don't know, but it can't be a lie. So I don't know. It's just like, there's I mean, there's ways to kind of like shine spotlights on these problems and kind of say like, hey, look, we at least need to address them. If not like, even if we don't have solutions right now. And I think that gets a little bit glossed over in this in these 2 episodes. And also, because I was thinking, what would make this episode really strong? So, the movie Star Trek First Contact.
I do know that movie.
Which is very similar, and they go back in time. It's a rough time in history, and they meet Zefram Cochrane. And Zefram Cochrane, who they know is this great legendary hero.
Mm-hmm.
We learn he was just this ordinary guy who got kind of thrust into history and kind of had to become the person that they know, right?
Yeah.
So, like, why can't we do the same thing with Gabriel Bell? Why do we have to kill Gabriel Bell and then Sisko take his place and then show us all how it's done? It's like, why can't they just be kind of like observers of this riot, and then we see this character Gabriel Bell, who we might not think much of, but we see how like this guy put in this situation kind of rises to the occasion and does what he does or whatever.
Yeah, imagine if it was like even if it was like BC and Bell are like ghosts, and then as this situation develops, like the guy that is is like a bad guy at the beginning is like BC's equivalent, realizes kind of what they're doing, and then eventually dies protecting the hostages from the other guy. Like that could be a much more emotional story about like or a core for the story.
Or how about this? What if Gabriel Bell dies and they're like, oh no, history is screwed now. And they try to fix things, but ultimately they're powerless. Like they're just, 2 more people at the mercy of this whole situation. But then we see either like BC or Webb on their own kind of steps up and replaces Bell. And they, and then the point of that is like, history is bigger than one person.
Yeah.
Any normal person, no matter what they seem like, can step up and fill that role when that's needed or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good thought too. I like that.
But yeah, instead, I think what makes it feel preachy is that Sisko and Bashir just come down and they're like, this is not the way things should be. We'll handle this situation. And it's like, that's not really like, I don't know. That's not a satisfying solution to the problem.
You need the advanced humans from the future to come back and fix things for you. Right. Yeah, that's...
And I feel like that happens a lot on Star Trek, where they go to a planet that has some problem, and ultimately some local person on that planet winds up like realizing what the problem is and, becoming a leader or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any specific examples, but I know that's happened like dozens of times throughout Star Trek.
Yeah, no, you're right. Even in the new Star Trek game I'm playing Resurgence right now. Like something similar seems to be getting set up, so it is a recurring theme.
Yeah, so, like I totally respect wanting to shine a spotlight on the homeless issue, but just the storytelling in this episode and the way like that thing is handled, I think really falls flat.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. There's a quote in here from Robert Hewitt Wolf from 2021 where he says, "As a writer, all you can do is be a voice in the wilderness sometimes. You can yell fire, but you can't put it out. It's disappointing that we're still grappling with this problem. I certainly would have hoped it would be better by now and that people would be like, ha, do you remember that Deep Space Nine episode that said homelessness would still be a problem in the 2020s? They were so gloomy." But one of the themes of the show is that paradise doesn't come for free. Even if it does get handed to you, you have to continually work to protect it and renew it and advance it.
I guess that's true. But a problem with homelessness is it's largely an invisible problem to most people. And I think we've seen even throughout history, like during the Great Depression, when there were times of widespread homelessness, like that's when people really stepped up and we started getting like, FDR... Mm-hmm. And like the WPA and all those programs to try to kind of like correct that problem.
Which, I mean, it sounds like they did try that because you had this federal jobs program, which is basically like the WPA, right?
Yeah.
So
or it sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know exactly what jobs they were giving it. Maybe they weren't going out and building dams and roads or whatever. But yeah, I guess it didn't work, or they gave up on that.
Yeah,
or I don't know. They were like, hey, if we just stick them all in ghettos, then that'll fix the problem also.
Yeah, but like, in a democratic society like ours, it's like when a large number of people start hurting like this, that's when it starts getting addressed. When it's a kind of a relatively minor underground that most people don't have any contact with, that's when it goes kind of ignored.
There's one piece of trivia that I picked up that I thought you would enjoy because we were talking about their outfits last time.
Okay.
So it says that O'Brien and Kira's time travel outfits are the same ones that they wore in The Homecoming when they go to Cardassia 4 to rescue Lee Alice.
Okay. I kind of recognized Kira's because of that
the
rope
net,
shirt
thing, whatever it is. Yeah,
I wasn't so sure. Okay, I guess they just had those costumes laying around, or
these already fit them, so I guess we'll just put those on. It's fine.
It's like, what are some good clothes we can wear that will fit in on Earth in any period in history? These are good enough.
And Alexander Siddig is in here once again, being like, this show was the end of the old Bashir and the beginning of the new, more responsible Bashir. He proved to everyone and himself that he can handle very tricky situations with almost no backup and no gizmos, not even the shotgun that Cisco had. It became conceivable that Bashir would be your first or second choice on an away team if you were going on a combat mission. I think that this pair of shows were a renaissance for Bashir. And I'm like, I really think you're giving yourself a little more credit there.
I think that's a little bit of wishful thinking on Siddig's part, but
yeah,
it's like, okay, sure. He steps up in the episode. I'll give him that. But it's not like I'm suddenly like, oh, Bashir is our number 2 most effective character.
Well, especially for combat. I mean,
right.
Yes, you are going to bring Bashir along as the medical officer on many, many away missions because that's a thing you might need. But he's just like, yeah, I mean, if you're going to be in a fight, Bashir's your number 1 guy. I'm like, no, I've seen you fight I've seen Bashir fight in these episodes. It's not.
Well, especially just compare him to all the other characters on the show. It's like we have Cisco and O'Brien, who are both actual combat veterans, and Kira.
Yep. And Kira.
Who grew up fighting. And then Odo, who's a shape-shifting alien.
Yeah, he's literally invincible to many weapons.
Right.
If somebody knifes or shoots him with a gun in the past, no problems.
I think I would put Bashir above Quark.
Yep, sure.
Maybe
Quark will scream and run away.
Yeah. Yeah, Quark will definitely not fight. Maybe slightly above Jake Sisko in this era of the show. Yeah,
I mean, Jake would be overconfident because he's a teenager and they're always overconfident.
Right.
Yeah, I had a 13-year-old tell me the other day that's like, yeah, if somebody broke into my house, I would beat him up and whatever. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
If somebody broke into your house, they'd have a knife or a gun if they were going to rob you. He's like, well, I would take that away from them. And
yeah,
yeah, all right.
Yeah, everybody assumes it's like, oh yeah, I can just grab that knife away. Knives aren't a problem. There's have you ever seen that surviving edged weapons or whatever?
No.
They reviewed it on Best of the Worst, and it's kind of like a kind of a cult video or whatever. It's a police training video about how to deal with people with knives.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, you have a gun, the other guy has a knife. In your imagination, you're going to be able to shoot the guy before he stabs you. And then they do these real world simulations of one guy with a gun, one guy with a knife. It's you're 6 feet away from the guy with the knife. He stabs you instantly before you can even reach for the gun. It's you're 12 feet away from the guy with the knife. As you're drawing the gun, he's closed the difference and he stabs you. And it's you have to be way far away from the guy with the knife before you can actually be effective against him.
Interesting.
And
I mean, I assume that you can retreat from the guy with the knife and move at least close to the same speed as he's moving.
Right. I mean, yeah, you can run away. Yeah, I mean, this is training for police, not for like average people. Like,
Oh yeah, okay.
If you see a guy with a knife, obviously you need to run away. But and it also teaches the lesson that pretty much anything can be a hidden knife. It's like there's a guy, like the bill of his cap is like lined with razor blades, and he like takes it off and like swipes, or is like
odd jobs you. Yeah, I
yeah,
got it.
cigarette lighters with like knives in them and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I had a comb once that was a hidden knife, but it was like a plastic knife, so you could take it through an airport metal detector if you wanted. I don't think it wasn't like sharp on the edges, so it wouldn't be good for slicing, but like it was very pointy.
Nice.
So I guess essentially like a shiv.
Should have tried to take over an airplane with it.
No, I should not have done that. Like there's no way that ends well. Is the thing, unless your positive outcome is dying, like or prison. There's no positive outcome from that, unless you're DB Cooper maybe.
Yeah, especially in the era of air marshals.
Yeah, like today that's bad. Back then, when the airline policy was just pay them the money that they want and it's fine. Then DB Cooper can get away with like a bag full of money or whatever. Right. But no one's doing that today.
Yep. Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
So, the lesson of this episode of Undeclared Bajor is don't try to hijack a plane.
Yeah, I do not recommend trying to hijack a plane. Maybe try to do a Pelham 1-2-3 situation. That might still work.
So, yeah, I think that's really what Ira Stephen Bear was trying to communicate to us with this examination of the homelessness problem.
Yes. Plane hijacking is dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. So... thank you for that, Ira.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta give him props. But just one thing that was going through my mind is, okay, 1995.
Mm-hmm.
Like, apartheid had just ended. The Bosnian War and genocide was still going on. Like, the world had such huge problems at that time. And, like, I don't want to be one of those people, it's like, you know, oh my gosh, don't worry about that problem. Like, there's bigger problems. But it's just like, the world is filled with problems and we're not going to solve them all at once. I mean, it's good to want to spotlight something, but like, don't you can't necessarily judge people for not being able to handle all issues at once, I guess. And like, even today, there's still homelessness, but there's like so much stuff going on right now. It's like stuff that I wouldn't even have imagined I would see in my lifetime just a few years ago.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd see like people climbing up into the Capitol and breaking out the windows and like trying to bash down the door to the Senate chamber.
Yeah, I probably would have said that was extremely unlikely to work out to like be possible.
Yeah.
Like they have their own police. Never mind. We're not going to get into this.
But yeah, I'm just saying, like, I mean, we can get into some crazy situations pretty fast without realizing what's going on. And
it's true.
It's good to try to keep an awareness of all these things. But don't be like, oh, people didn't watch my episode about the homelessness, and now homelessness is still a problem. It's like, okay, calm down. Settle down a little bit.
What if they dropped Cisco and Bashir into Bosnia?
Yeah. That, I would like to see that. It's like Cisco and Bashir tried to solve the Bosnia crisis. It's like, Bashir's like, what do we do now, Commander? It's like, I really got nothing. We just got to get out of here. So anyway, we didn't even do ratings yet. You want to do ratings?
Yeah, let's do the ratings. What do you want to rate this one?
Well, I mean, it's tough. I'm going to be nice just like I was last time and give it a Lieutenant Commander for good intentions, at least. There's some episodes where just they weren't even trying to do anything good. They were just like insulting my intelligence or something. So,
right.
So I'll give them that. But for all the reasons I've discussed so far, it kind of falls flat. So
sure.
What do you think?
So, in comparison to my rating on the last one, this one has a lot of the same problems. It still feels very preachy to me. It's still. The time travel still makes no sense whatsoever. More, in fact, if at all, it's just more ridiculous. I think we do a little better by the characters, and we have stuff that actually feels like it means something in this episode as opposed to the last one. So I like it a little better for that reason. Even if I don't think Bashir has become quite the character that Alexander Siddig feels that he became, I do agree that we're seeing some growth from Bashir and from Sisko, honestly, and Dax's whole role still makes not that much sense to me in this, but I like how she's playing it also. So I'm gonna put this one. I put the last one just below the line. I think this one goes just above the line for me. So we're gonna go for Lieutenant Commander also.
Yeah. That's something I forgot to give it props for. Is there are some like good, especially like some of the guest actors.
Yeah.
There's some kind of like good guest character performances, and I know I was kind of like ragging on BC, but he has a few good moments. So, and the guy
Clint Howard's whole thing is great.
Oh yeah, definitely bring Cliff Howard in. Magic. And then the guy who plays Webb, I felt had a few good moments. So
oh yeah, like, and you actually kind of care when he dies.
Yeah,
and like his son, who he's just sent out, is like, oh man, that kid just lost his dad. That sucks.
Yeah, I was upset when Webb died. I was like, why did you have to kill Webb? But yeah, that was one thing I was like, maybe Webb should step up, and then the riots get renamed to the Webb riots or something like that. That would have been a cool twist. Nice. But yeah, whatever. So yeah, that's a good point. Got to give those people props. And the social worker lady, whatever her name was, who had hypoglycemia.
Yeah. She has some decent stuff here.
Yeah. So totally good.
Oh yeah, one last thing that I thought was interesting here. This is the last episode of Deep Space Nine to air before the premiere of Voyager, which will air on the 16th of January, 1995. And so the last of 12 Deep Space Nine episodes, starting with The Search Part 1, that premiered without any Star Trek series also on the air.
Huh. Only 12.
Yep.
So, ready to close it there?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that does it for us today. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. As always, check out the description where you may find links to interesting things. I think that knife safety video is on YouTube, so I'll see if I can put a link to that in there. It's some bananas stuff. Anyway, I'm Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
See ya.
Till next time, don't forget to kiss the negus stick.